Bitch. What's wrong with that nigga, man? The fuck out of here. Alright, we back. We back.
In many ways.
No sitting back, can't waste no time. You stack pennies, I can't drop a dime. While they tryna play it, my nigga rewind. Coach of the team, I'ma get them in line. Give a fuck about the rollie, I got all the time. If she with me or not, I'ma do it for mine. Fuck.
What the fuck is good, y'all, man? We got another infographics video, man. Every generation explained in 10 minutes. And look, I ain't gonna lie, this is my second generation video, man. From the my second or third video from the infographic show. But look, today we got every generation explained in 10 minutes. The last video I had was about Gen Z. It was like, what was the term called? What's it called? It was like, oh, Gen Z's mental health. And somebody will get in my comments and talk about, oh yeah, this is a bad way to speak on this. Like, oh, you can't be judging anybody. And start bringing up God and stuff. Like, I'm like, yo, I'm not judging nobody. Like, really listen to what I be saying. Because I'm not speaking from one side as a Gen Z person. I'm speaking in general. I'm speaking the truth outside of the box. I'm really speaking on that shit, bro. Like, I'm not speaking from one side or judging nobody. I'm just speaking the truth. That's just what it is. I don't know why niggas like took it that way. But I don't know. I still understand. Niggas have like a certain way of viewing things. I still understand that. And I think some niggas also like get emotionally like attached and they start saying certain things, you feel me? Because when you get your emotions into it, you're not gonna really think how you really should think, you feel me? You're not gonna really think of the truth when your emotions are involved. But look, that's for another video, man. I'm not even gonna get too deep into that. But look, every generation explained in 10 minutes of getting to the drink.
You kids and your TikToks. When I was your age, we were working in the mines.
But just let y'all know, I won't really get mad or anything. I'm just trying to get shit clear. Because I'm not judging nobody. It is what it is.
Grumbles between mouthfuls of mashed potatoes. Okay, boomer. Your 12-year-old cousin fires back, eyes glued to his iPhone. Skippity toilet. And there you are, frantically scrolling through job listings trying to find a side hustle to cover, well, living. But how did we get here? Why does it feel like the generations are at war? It wasn't always like this. Sure, back in the 1800s, they probably complained about how those darn 1812ers were ruining the Revolutionary War's generation's hard-fought legacy. But this idea of labeling people by generations and turning it into a culture clash, that's actually a 20th century invention. Generations used to be simple family labels until someone decided, hey, let's study this and fight about it. And now we have 7 distinct generations, each thinking they're doing things right. But why does this feel like a battleground for who's really to blame for the world's problems? That's exactly what we're breaking down in this episode of the Infographic Show. Every Generation Explained. Find out exactly where you fit into this generational showdown. The greatest generation, 1901 to 1927. This generation was born at the start of a new century filled with promise, progress, and excitement. But naturally, history had different plans. The early years of this
straight war out that joint, bro. Straight war. Like, what? And like, that was crazy. Yeah.
Would be filled with massive upheaval, with many seeing World War I unfold and being haunted by the specter of the Spanish flu. But amid this, they saw many leaps in culture, as the roaring 20s took off and brought jazz and swing music to the mainstream. But with every up comes a down, and the Great Depression hit, as many of them were approaching adulthood, plunging the entire world into economic uncertainty. And then the rumblings of war started. And that's how this generation earned their name. Most of this generation were fighting age when World War II broke out, and they became associated with the most iconic...
That's why it's crazy, because like, we the only generation, I don't even want to say the one that's after us, I don't want to say that, or the one before us. We're the only generation that hasn't really like had to fight a war without like, besides people that's in the military right now, we're the only ones who haven't like been forced to join the war. It's like crazy. And I think the one before us too, yeah. One before us too, I think. The ones at the end of the last generation.
States had ever seen. Although there were many losses, they returned home to celebrations and went on to great success in business, culture, and of course politics. It's believed there are over 100,000 members of this generation still alive. So if you're lucky enough to know one, ask them to tell you a crazy story about the days. With a legacy this large, there is no surprise the next generation was sort of overshadowed.
Imagine
Oh my
being
goodness.
able to build anything just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
Silent Generation, 1928 to 1945. The Silent Generation was also shaped by these world events, but not in the same way, as they grew up in a world in flux. The Depression shaped their childhood, leading to many growing up in unsettled circumstances, and the war caused wartime rationing. Many saw parents die in combat and grew up in a deeply patriotic environment. Speaking out against the government was frowned upon, and a strong sense of collectivism was encouraged. And that's how this generation got its name, because as soon as one war ended, another began. This was the first generation largely defined by the Cold War. The threat of communism was already alive and well in America before this generation was born. But once the Soviet Union got nukes, it was all hands on deck. The name comes from the fact that most of them were silent during the McCarthy era, keeping their heads down and maintaining a strong work ethic that had been instilled in them since childhood. That kind of low-key behavior leads to them often being forgotten as a key generation. Baby boomers, 1946 to 1964. The term baby boomers comes from the baby boom of the late 1940s and 1950s, as all the World War II veterans returned home and the economy
Yeah, they returned home and they started going crazy.
recovered from the Depression and wartime footing. The result, a higher standard of living for Americans, a fast advance in commerce and technology.
Some niggas came home and started hitting everything. It's like, nah, it was hitting one thing, but it was hitting that joint. It was hitting that joint every
And
year.
a whole lot of
Every year.
And soon the babies started coming, resulting in a massive generation of over 76 million Americans alone, making them the largest generation. And they grew up in a world that saw progress come fast. This was the age of the space race, of the civil rights movement, of Woodstock, and of changes that led to what most people view as a typical American childhood. But it was also an age of uncertainty and terror. If the words duck and cover cause you to dive under the nearest table, you might just be a baby boomer. This was the era when nuclear annihilation was the clearest and most present threat, as events like the Cuban Missile Crisis brought the world to the brink. Thus, baby boomers were raised to be cautious and deeply patriotic. But this was also the era of the Vietnam draft and the massive
Damn, bro, this is like my great-grandfather era right here. My great-grandfather, he fought in the Vietnam War. So this is like around this time he got drafted.
movement
And that
that
nigga was not the same, bro. But that's like anybody going to war, bro. You're not gonna come back the same, bro. It's just who really goes to war and comes back sane. Like you gonna see niggas you talk to on the plane and shit die. Like niggas you like what I chop it up with, you kill it instantly. And that's just the reality of that. Nobody gonna be sane after that, bro.
something that
Just like niggas in the streets, like you sitting at home, you die in front of your face, like death all the time.
continues in how they impact politics to this day. They've had 4 presidents: Clinton, Bush Jr., Obama, and Trump. They have a reputation for leaning conservative, and their easier road in the economy and employment rankles the younger generations. But they're as ideologically diverse as the other generations, and as they reach retirement age by the millions each year, they show no signs of their influence waning. With the boomers casting such a long shadow, is it any surprise the next generation is a little more zen? Generation X, 1965 to 1980. Known as the slacker generation by many of the older generations, Generation X largely escaped one major trial by fire, a major war that swept them up. While the baby boomers largely fought in Vietnam, this generation saw the latter days of the Cold War as tensions started to slowly ease. The most significant war of this period, the Gulf War, was a limited conflict that didn't involve a draft.
A year? That shit was only a year. That's crazy.
To them becoming far more involved in domestic
The Gulf was yeah, I know
affairs
what that
and
is.
far more willing to question the powers that be. This was the era where LGBT rights became a key issue, and when the AIDS epidemic swept the world. And while the world might not have been in as much danger of immediate annihilation, change was going to come fast, and much of that cultural shift would be on the TV. Today, Generation X is the most associated with not what they did, but with what they watched and listened to. This is the era that MTV came on the air, and the beginnings of the grunge movement stepped into the stage. It also saw a disturbing rise in kidnappings and the rise of the satanic panic, as fears shifted to the home front, and parents became more protective of their kids, spelling an end to the age of
So basically what they're saying is this is the era of serial killers Like your Charlie Mansons, your Jeffrey Dahmers.
Free-range childhood, and the beginning of helicopter parenting. Much like the silent generation, this generation is often seen as overshadowed by the one sandwiching it, and it has never had a president, even as its older members approach 60. Now it's time to shift to the kids. What?
I'm Mindy, and I'm a meathead.
It was an interesting childhood. She just couldn't get enough of meat.
It wasn't easy being a meathead. Now it is.
Meat for real meatheads. Yumbo.
Producers,
Oh
this
my,
plugin
double
helps you finish your
ass?
tracks way faster. Check this out. I'm gonna start with this loop that I made here.
Double ass.
Wait,
Yo.
they're how old now? Millennials, 1981 to 1996. Coming of age as the Cold War breathed its last and it...
Oh yeah. This is like my mom. Yeah, this is like my cousin and them parents. Like, what the fuck?
era began, the millennials are associated with one thing more.
Whoa. What year did that say? I think it might be my oldest cousin too, actually, now I think about it. What year is
Millennials,
it?
1981 to 1996. Coming of age as the Cold War breathed its last and a new era began, the millennials are associated with one thing more than any other: technology. This generation experienced a lot of whiplash in their early years, growing up in the era of Toys R Us and wall phones as kids, seeing the internet born.
Bro, I thought Gen Z started at 2003 then. Am I tweaking? Or does Gen Z start at 1998 or something? What the fuck?
They grew up and entering a new digital landscape as they hit high school or college. For the millennials, especially those who saw the calendar roll over to 2000 as they approached adulthood, the world seemed full of promise and excitement. Surely it was all uphill from here. But just like the greatest generation, history had its way of throwing a spanner in the works. As soon as the new millennium rolled over, chaos seemed to ensue. A near-tied presidential election with a controversial resolution led many millennials to become dissatisfied with politics. The 9/11 attacks in New York and Washington kicked off a global war on terror. And while there was no draft like in previous generations, it cast a pall over young adulthood for many.
didn't see that?
Then the 2008 financial crisis upended many millennials' career plans.
Oh, niggas in that chat, nigga. Bro, not a moth getting in this bitch. Bro, is that a fucking mosquito? Bro, come on, bro. Well, as soon as he come over here, bro, it's over for him. That's all.
This is set.
Where's he at, nigga? He's trying to get me to hit my equipment, dog. Bitch. Nigga. Bro, move. Bro, this nigga kid will come in there and quit. I'm not trying to hit my shit down, bro. Bitch. What is wrong with that nigga, man? Get the fuck out of here. Alright, we back.
Back in many ways, with many living at home with their parents long after previous generations and struggling to find long-term employment. This has also led to this generation becoming highly liberal, with many of the generation's young politicians being iconoclasts, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. But while millennials are often used as shorthand for young people, here's a scary statistic. The older millennials are now over 40, which means some of them are already grandparents. Which means it's time for someone else to say, okay, Millen.
Gen Z is 1997 to 2010. What the fuck? I didn't know that shit. Bro, I heard somebody say that shit started at 2003 to like 2. What the fuck? I guess I'm
Generation
tripping.
Z, 1997 to 2010. If millennials got a crash course in technology as they grew up, Gen Z are digital natives, with almost all of them growing up with the internet being a part of everyday life. They likely got cell phones at a relatively young age, and those quickly changed to smartphones, essentially giving them a computer in their pocket all the time. When the boomers talk about kids these days will never understand, they mean this generation. The majority of Gen
bro. See. You know, but hey, bro, he's not lying. You know, I can't get mad. He's not lying. He's not lying, bro.
He has never likely worked on a typewriter, used whiteout, or scanned a newspaper for movie listings. To which they would answer, why would we need to? But if you think that means that they've checked out of reality, think again. One thing has been clear about this generation as they get older, and it's that they are highly engaged in politics and social issues, with the internet being key in increasing their awareness. They've played a key role in the anti-war, gun control, and anti-climate change movements, but often
it does increase their awareness, but then it's like, you can also have false information though on there. That's the only like downside. It's like a double-edged sword, you feel me? Like just like with the newspapers, like niggas was putting out false information on newspapers. Niggas do that shit on social media. They'll have put out all the wrong information. So it's like you get like a one-sided perspective about certain things, you feel me? But that's up to the individual though too, to actually do your real research on everything. Like actually dig deep. Cause it's there.
for confrontational protest movements to voting and organizing in the traditional way. This has caused no shortage of headaches for older generations, but progress usually only goes one way, and it's still uncertain how they're going to impact politics around the world as they get older. Which raises the question, what is the next generation going to look like? Gen Alpha, 2011 to ? How do you judge a generation that's just barely started? Well, if you ask most older people, they have no problem. Much like Gen Z were digital natives, Gen Alpha are smartphone natives, which means they've never known a world without the constant stream of information at their fingertips. This has led to worries from teachers about them having trouble with reading and attention span, as they're just so used to getting their information from short-form video, like TikTok, and they're growing up just as AI becomes a massive concern. But like with every generation, there is another side to that. Even more so than Gen Z, Gen Alpha is highly engaged in activism and passionate about justice. They're also the most tech-savvy generation ever, not just playing it, but creating it. More than half of American kids under 16 are members of Roblox, a site that allows them to code games. But they're growing up in a world that's more unsettled than it has been since the Cold War. And many older people are worried about these kids getting radicalized in both directions. And as they enter high school and college, we'll see how they start influencing the world. Which is to say, we should expect some more dinner table arguments. Want to learn more about one of the biggest Gen Alpha?
Dang, bro, that's so wicked, bro. But nah, this is about the future, bro. So like, it's not about Gen Z no more. I mean, it kind of is, but it's about Gen Alpha though, bro. For real, for real. That's what it's really about. It's about my kids, man. I don't think my kids gonna be Gen Alpha for real, for real. You know, I don't got no kids right now, but you feel me? You never know. A little Johnny might come out here or there. You feel me? Shit, he might even make it to Gen Alpha, man. You feel me? He might even make it to there. But for now, man, I'm just focused on myself getting this bag. But look, that's every generation in 10 minutes, man. Y'all like, comment, subscribe for more videos, bro. We going everywhere with this, bro. Everywhere, every single aspect, man. Just like, this is just my lifestyle, bro. This is just stuff I would watch anyways, like, cause I always like watching informational videos, man. But I ain't gonna keep y'all too long, man. Y'all niggas stay safe, man. I'm out here.